Geometry, Unit 1, Lesson 5. I can construct a congruent segment and perpendicular bisector using a compass. So, let's go over some basic vocabulary. We're going to talk about the segment addition postulate first, a little review. Think of this as A, B, and C. You can really think of adding this segment and this segment together to give yourself a bigger segment. So AB plus BC is equal to AC. So the pink distance plus the yellow distance gives you the entire distance AC. Now, why don't we stay over here for a little while. An endpoint, if we took a single segment like this, AC, these would be endpoints right here. Take a look. That's an endpoint. That's an endpoint. Maybe I can make a ray. And if I made a ray, you can see how this is an endpoint as well. They're points on the end. So a point at the end of a segment or ray. Now a midpoint is a pretty important point as well. If I say M is the midpoint, well, then that means that's the point in the middle of a segment. But if something's in the middle, then that means it's halfway, which is really, really important because then I know this segment here and this segment here are going to be congruent. So that would allow me to say that those two, distance from A to M, is going to equal the distance from M to C. So now, if we come over here, we can stick with that example, really. And if we say that they're congruent, because M is the midpoint, then I could say that segment AM here is congruent. So same shape and size as segment MC. Same shape and size. You can really think identical. Or really just equal. Now if we move up here, we see perpendicular. There's a symbol that we use to speak perpendicular, just like there's a symbol we use to speak congruent. This is the symbol that we say congruent. Perpendicular symbol looks like this, looks like a 90-degree angle. You speak it as perpendicular. It really means 90 degrees. So I could get a little sketch in over here. Call this line M, this line N. And if I were to come in and put this symbol in here, that means 90 degrees. And I could say line M is perpendicular to line N. That's how you would speak that out loud. And finally, bisect. We already know this one. The prefix bi means two. So we're going to cut into two equal parts. So I could do an example here. Call this AC. And I could say that the point M here is the midpoint, and maybe this line here comes through. Call this line N. Line N is a bisector. It bisects segment AC into two equal parts. So again, I'd be able to say line N bisects segment AC. Cuts it in two. And of course, there's another bunch of bisectors. Really an unlimited number of bisectors that could come through and cut that in half. So that's the vocab. Let's go see about this objective, actually doing a construction and doing a segment, copy, and doing a perpendicular bisector. So you can practice these on your own over and over. I'm going to go one step at a time and show you how we're doing this. So I need a straight edge and a compass. Here's my compass, my straight edge, just anything straight. This is my ID. And here's my compass. This is the width of the compass. This is the needle, and this is the pencil. That's the width. So I'm going to go ahead and do this construction. I want to do a segment copy. And it's going to look like this. Step one, it doesn't really matter where you make this. I'll even do it at an angle. You make a segment a little bit longer than the first one you have. Call that point C. And then anytime you want to see how long something is, you can use your compass here to figure that out. Put the needle on A, pencil on B. I'm basically saying, oh, see, it's that long. It's that wide. But I need to show that I was here and that I measured it. So the key is to have all of your weight on the needle and just move the paper a little bit. And I made a little arc. And now notice I'm not going to change the width because I want this length to be right here because I'm trying to copy this segment. Do the same thing, just move the paper a little bit, make that same arc. And then I can see, I can call this point D, that segment AB is congruent to segment CD. I can make a statement that says that. Segment AB is congruent to segment CD. Now, if you were to go ahead and try and write about this, you can go make a segment here and just try it a few times yourself. If I was to try and write a story about this, and this is really important because I can try and assess it, see if you know what you're talking about, by asking you to explain the steps. So the first step, if you remember, was that we went ahead and made, used a straight edge. So and you want to make a segment longer than the original. Then you want to label your endpoint C. That was the first thing we did down here. And you can see the vocabulary words I'm trying to bring into play here. I use straight edge, segment, okay, endpoint. Now the next thing I did is I put the needle on A of the compass, and I put the pencil on B, and I made a little arc. So I'm making an arc at B. So notice I'm saying compass, needle, noting the pencil, saying arc. Okay, so I went ahead and I did this right here, moving the paper, and I picked up that exact same compass without changing the width, put the needle on point C, and did the same thing and made a little arc. Notice how I say without changing the width. And then I go ahead and I label the intersection of the arc and the segment as D. And then I was able to make a statement, and I've got it. Notice again, I said things like needle, point, width, arc, intersection, segment. As much vocab in there as you can. So that's a segment copy. Again, notice I want this kind of right there. Now we're going to do something different. We're going to go ahead and bisect. So for bisecting, we're cutting it into 2 equal parts. And this is a little bit more fun. Take your compass. This is the important part. Make sure you open the width so it's a little bit more than halfway. So the needle can go on one of the points. Go a little more than halfway is fine. Okay. And now I'm going to make a pretty good sized arc here. So I'm actually going to make about half a circle. So here I go. Keep the weight on the needle. There's my first one. Now notice I'm not going to change this. Just flip it around. The width is the same, but I'm putting the needle on B. Do the same thing. Gently change the paper, moving it around. And then I have this. So notice now I'm going to put points where the intersections of the arcs are. I'll call them C and D. And then what you can do is go ahead, use your straight edge here, and connect these 2 points. And that right there is perpendicular, and it's a bisector, and I'm going to call this right here M because it's the midpoint. So bisected segment AB into 2 congruent segments, and this segment and this segment are now perpendicular. The statement I might make: segment AM is congruent to segment MB, and line segment AB is perpendicular to line segment CD. You go ahead and try that one a bunch of times. If I were to give you the steps real quick, which is in the key, but might as well give them to you really quick. So step 1, put the compass needle at point A and pencil more than halfway. Towards point B. Okay, and we want to make a semicircle, which is half a circle. So that's what we did right here. Opened up more than halfway, and you made that semicircle, first one. Then we flipped it around to the exact same thing, but from point B. So keep the compass width. And make the same arc from the needle on point B. And then once we had that, we labeled the arc intersections C and D. And then we went ahead and we made segment CD, and we labeled the intersection of segment CD and segment AB as point M. And you can go through this and highlight all the vocab words we used. There you have it. Good luck.